960, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Papa Nicholas Coffee. Papa Nicholas, great coffee, period.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like
And I inhale. I did inhale.
On AM 560.
I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
Yeah, Kamala's going to be looking for more joy in her life where she finds herself in the polls. But interesting event over the weekend in Houston. President Trump and Indian President Modi. And remember, the Indian American population is one of those demographics that vote overwhelmingly Democrat. And as is the case with so many particular demographics, I have no idea why. They're such an industrious and entrepreneurial people. President Trump welcoming Modi and Indian Americans to the event in Houston.
Hello, Houston. I am so thrilled to be here in the great state of Texas with one of America's greatest, most devoted, and most loyal friends, Prime Minister Modi of India. Thank you. Thank you. And Prime Minister Modi is doing a truly exceptional job for India and for all of the Indian people. It is my immense privilege to be here with him today at this profoundly historic event. We're especially grateful to be joined by over 50,000 incredible members of our nation's thriving, prospering, flourishing, and hardworking Indian American community. Thank you.
Yeah, and PM Modi returned many of the pleasantries.
This is extraordinary. This is unprecedented. Friends, as I told you, we have met a few times, and every time he has been the same warm, friendly, accessible, energetic, and full of wit. I admire him for something more. A sense of leadership, a passion for America, a concern for every American, a belief in American future, and a strong resolve to make America great again. And he has already made the American economy strong again.
Well, let's see. The administration is pursuing China over human rights abuses of a Muslim minority. President Trump on the same stage as Indian PM Modi, exchanging expressions of support as India and the U.S. Work together collaboratively, including on trade. That was after he was in Ohio with the Prime Minister of Australia, opening a new manufacturing facility there. Boy, all this talk from the left about us losing our standing in the world and so on and so forth, that certainly doesn't seem to be the case with a quick perusal just of this weekend's events. Rather remarkable. For more on this, as it frames the 2020 presidential election, we're pleased to be joined by Melissa Chen. She's a writer for Spectator USA. Melissa, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, is this Dan?
Yes, this is Dan and Amy.
Hi, Dan and Amy.
Hello.
Hi.
How did you receive the event with PM Modi in particular this weekend? It's sort of important, particularly to, as I was mentioning, a demographic in America that votes overwhelmingly for Democrats.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, Modi has a really interesting perception here, and even, he's kind of seen as this example of just another nationalistic, world leader that Trump has been pandering to. And people cite Modi's case alongside other leaders such as Brazil's Bolsonaro and Duterte and sort of the rising, nationalistic leaders in Europe, which I think probably the fact that Salvini recently lost is proof that that's not the case. But nationalism seems to be something that they're holding Trump's feet to the fire to. And his alliance with Modi and really good friendship with India is sort of held up as an example of that. And yeah, the Indian American population here in America, it's just like the larger Asian minority tends to vote Democrat. But I think we're seeing numbers change over the years, and certain policies like what you have with the Harvard admissions case and things like that with racial discrimination when it comes to schools is starting to change this Asian American minority vote. You definitely see it a lot with rhetoric, especially here in New York City, where I'm based, with what Bill de Blasio proposed to get rid of standardized testing in order to boost admissions for other minorities. Is really pitting minorities against each other. And I think that what you're starting to see is the Asian American group sort of breaking down a little in terms of this dominance, the tendency to vote dominantly for the Democrats.
Well, then look at Kamala Harris. I mean, she's Indian American, and it seems that the Indian American community is not behind her. Do you know why?
Well, I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I mean, for starters, I think Kamala Harris in particular kind of, I think she glosses over her Indian American heritage. She doesn't really signal it. She tends to identify, I think most people don't even know she's Indian American.
Yeah, she identifies as black.
Haley.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's real
Unlike
simple.
Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
Right. I think if Nikki Haley or Bobby Jindal ran, they would be far more popular. A lot of recent immigrants, like first generation, they tend to be socially a lot more conservative. They're actually far more in line with Republican values than Democratic values. So it's strange to me that they've always voted left. But I think things are changing.
Yeah. What about Jindal and Nikki Haley and how they are described by the D.C. press corps and how that influences how they're received even by communities from whence they hail, the Indian American community in this case?
Well, they're kind of received as Uncle Toms in a way. And not only that, I think there was in the last election when we were celebrating the breaking of the glass ceiling for many of the Muslim American new congresswomen who the squad, right? There were also Asian Americans there was a Korean American actually who became a congressman and congresswoman in California, and somehow that story about the first Korean American didn't really it maybe registered on conservative media, but not really overall media because she happened to run as a Republican.
Yeah,
so we tend to downgrade these stories because they're not celebrated as cases of diversity sometimes.
But we're super excited about Andrew Yang, aren't we? Because $12,000 a year, and he's going to start with 100 lucky Americans, and I don't exactly know what the judiciousness of that policy is, or how that's going to usher in a period of prosperity. But he's being treated seriously.
Yeah, I think there are two reasons that Andrew Yang thinks that this UBI platform is going to work. In some ways, I feel like he's kind of like Oprah, like just $1,000 for you, $1,000 for you.
You get a free.
And it felt like that on the stage, right? When he was at the debate, and he said it felt like a bit of a game show. When he's like, and right now tonight we're going to give one American, this $1,000 a month. And it felt like a reality show a little, but
yeah.
I think Andrew's the reason for UBI for him is twofold. One of which he thinks that it will help Americans basically get through automation, which he thinks is one of the biggest contributors to why Americans felt a lot of economic anxiety, and that Trump was elected.
Well, I know,
So-
but I just work this because none of the moderators will work this. Candidate Yang, Mr. Yang. So this is to replace somebody who loses their job because their plant was automated. So you're replacing somebody making, let's say, $60,000 a year plus benefits with $12,000 a year, and this is supposed to be received as some kind of brilliant policy insight. It's absurd on its face, but nobody asks sort of the follow-up question with respect to the policy implications. Do some simple math here.
Great. I think some people did ask, though, whether, like, how are you going to pay for it? I think Yang has been on the interview circuit, and when asked how he's going to pay for it, he actually does have an answer for that. He says that the $12,000, just giving Americans the freedom dividend, as he has called it, will end up basically, bringing in more revenue to the economy. It's like a stimulus in a way, and that it's going to flow back into the economy and create certain, more jobs.
Shovel-ready
Bars
people.
are going to be revitalized in restaurants. So, he has, and I think he wants to pay for it also by instituting a VAT, a value-added tax, sort of like what we have in Europe right now. So that's a way of paying for it, but at least there's an answer.
Right. I'm going to give you $12,000 a year. Then I'm going to take it away through higher prices for consumer goods with my VAT tax. Brilliant. I mean, he's definitely in the right primary. No question.
But he also is he makes a lot of self-deprecating jokes. And I remember during the last debate, they were talking about healthcare, and he said, "Now I'm Asian, so I know a lot of doctors."
Hi-oh!
And but it was so uncomfortable. It's just strange that.
Wow, he's a riot, and he's so cool because he doesn't wear a tie. I mean, I want to be him.
And he body surfs.
Yeah. Oh, it's just fantastic.
Right, crowd surfed. Yeah,
crowd surfed. Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, he's just fun, and it's looking like he's very refreshing. If you follow his Twitter feed too, Andrew just talks about anything from why the Patriots suck to
the cast of Saturday Night Live.
Right. So he's a very refreshing candidate in that sense. He's made certain quips that also are racial in nature. Like he'll say something like, the opposite of Trump is an Asian man who likes math or something like that. And he's made these kinds of quips, and it's raised a lot of eyebrows. I think Vox published a piece saying that Andrew Yang's use of Asian stereotypes is reinforcing toxic tropes.
Oh my God. The threshold for refreshing or avant-garde on the left is so low that Andrew Yang actually, I guess, qualifies. It's remarkable to me. I wanted to get to this other piece that you wrote, sort of a microcosm of the larger culture war, and the dateline is a brewery in New Jersey. What is this? What is the case of the Human Village Brewing Company in Pittman, New Jersey?
So, it was basically the brewery was hosting an after party to a conference that I was, full disclosure, I was a part of as well. I was speaking on a panel. But the conference is actually titled Ending Violence, Racism, and Authoritarianism. And it was organized by, it was a three-part group, but one of the groups that organized this conference is actually local to Chicago, almost Milwaukee, really. But that was the theme of the conference, and it was bringing together people, from on the right, sort of commentators like YouTubers like Sargon Fakat, journalists like Tim Pool, who's a bit more center-right, I guess, or centrist, used to be from Vice. He covered Occupy Democrats, so somehow in the last 3 years he's moved to the right, just in terms of public perception somehow. And people like Daryl Davis, who is an African-American man activist who personally de-radicalized about 200 members of the KKK by befriending them. Like, he's infiltrated the group, makes friends with these guys, and he slowly pulls them out of the KKK, and he collects their robes as mementos. So he has 200 robes in his closet. I heard that man speak at the conference. People were teary-eyed. It was just so beautiful in terms of talking about countering hate and violence. And he did it by talking to the other side. So this conference had, about a week prior, started generating a lot of heat, and especially among sort of nebulous groups, like a group that popped up called No Hate New Jersey. They pressured the venue to deplatform the conference, and the venue actually complied. It was the Broadway Theater in Pittman, New Jersey. They complied, and there's actually an ongoing lawsuit right now between the organizers and and the venue. And then it spilled over into the after party when they realized the brewery that was hosting the after party refused to do as the conference venue did. They refused to deplatform or just cancel the contract. They honored it, and so it was, at the after party, it was ridiculous. The police had shut down the streets. There were protesters. It wasn't, at most maybe 40 protesters that were camped outside the bar, shouting things like white supremacists, no Nazis, things like that, which is ridiculous because you have a man like Daryl Davis sitting inside the bar. And at this conference, you did really have both the whole, people representing the entire spectrum, political spectrum, including libertarians. So somehow that doesn't matter. I talked about something called the political one-drop rule, where we're basically, at this point, we hold an event or an issue or a person to, basically that person becomes conservative or far right if they hold one remotely conservative view.
Well, also
And
too,
that's
I
what
mean,
happened.
yeah, anybody in the business of racial healing, that doesn't work for those protesters and their ilk, because their business is in propagating the scourge of white supremacy and rallying people against white supremacy or a particular individual, as you say, for the purposes of political power. So to the extent that you have people in the business like Mr. Davis of converting people from paths of hatred, well, that puts them out of business.
Right, and the brewery owners are two people of Jewish descent, and they were calling them neo-Nazis, and people had gone onto their Facebook page to vandalize, reviews and Yelp reviews. They did the same thing too, but to Yelp's credit, they actually did shut down politically motivated reviews.
She is
great.
She is Melissa Chen, writer for Spectator USA. Check out her piece on both Andrew Yang as well as this New Jersey brewery, the conference at this New Jersey brewery she was describing. Melissa, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Take care.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Listen up, Chicago area. Are you interested in making active and passive income each month flipping real estate tax liens? Then listen to this. The ProSource Tax Lien Company is offering a free tax lien flip kit